You open the Amazon app, type fishing rod into the search bar, and immediately start scrolling past the first 24 results. You see unpronounceable brand names, highly saturated photos, and suspiciously low price tags, and you instantly assume it is all just disposable, hollow fiberglass garbage built to explode into splinters on your very first serious hook set. You're making the exact same mistake that 99% of anglers make every single time they shop for gear online. Because right now, at this exact moment, there are professional charter captains quietly ordering from that very same page, stripping the cheap factory decals off the blanks with a razor blade, and handing those exact rods to paying clients who fully believe they are fishing with $300 custom builds. These professionals are not doing this to be cheap, and they are definitely not doing it because they lack a budget for proper equipment. They are doing it because they understand a fundamental mathematical truth about rod manufacturing that the major brands have spent tens of millions of marketing dollars trying to hide from you. Today, we are looking at the 8 specific, highly capable fishing rods buried deep inside the Amazon algorithm that you are currently ignoring. We will cover exactly why the traditional retail markup model is legally stealing from you, how to separate the legitimate, direct-to-consumer gems from the actual factory waste, and the #1 rod on this list, the one that professional guides actively choose over gear that costs 5 times as much. A fishing rod fundamentally only needs to do 3 basic things to be effective on the water. It needs to cast a lure accurately by loading and releasing kinetic energy. It needs to transmit the microscopic vibrations of a bite through the blank into your hand, and it needs to provide enough structural backbone to drive a hook home and turn a heavy fish away from heavy cover. These 3 mechanical requirements were perfectly solved by graphite engineers more than 2 decades ago, and the technology required to achieve them is incredibly cheap to mass produce today. When you walk into a big box sporting goods store and pay $250 for a premium rod, you are not actually paying for groundbreaking, space-age carbon fiber technology. You're paying for a massive, inefficient distribution chain. You're paying the overseas factory, then the international shipping conglomerate, then the national distributor, then the brand's marketing department, then the regional warehouse, and finally the retail store that has to pay for air conditioning, display racks, and the teenager working behind the gun counter. Every single entity in that long, unbroken chain demands their 20 to 30% margin, and they extract every single penny of it directly out of your wallet. But there is a specific corridor of the internet where that entire chain has been violently severed, leaving only the factory and your front door, and that is exactly where we find our first item. Listen to these specifications before you form an opinion. 24-ton Toray carbon matrix blank construction, a custom-tuned, moderate-fast taper, precisely aligned aluminum oxide guides seated in stainless steel frames, and a high-density EVA split grip built around an exposed blank reel seat for maximum vibration transmission. If I told you that rod had a premium Japanese badge on it, you would comfortably expect to hand over $120 at the register. That is the exact spec sheet of the Cast King Perigee 2, and it currently sits on Amazon for about $50, depending on the length and action you select. This rod is built on the exact same manufacturing lines, using the exact same carbon cloth, as rods that cost triple the price in traditional retail stores. The only caveat here is that the resin coating on the thread wraps can sometimes be applied a little thick from the factory, adding a microscopic fraction of an ounce of unnecessary weight. But when you're throwing a half-ounce chatterbait across a windy point, you will not notice that extra resin, but your bank account will absolutely notice the $70 you saved. Our next rod requires you to completely forget everything you think you know about entry-level surf fishing gear. When you're standing in the suds, launching heavy lead and large chunks of cutbait into the breakers, you need absolute, uncompromising durability above all else. The FibLink Moonsniper Surf Rod delivers exactly that, built on a hybrid solid glass and carbon fiber blank that is virtually indestructible under normal fishing conditions. I have seen guys accidentally slam these rods in truck tailgates, drop them on concrete jetties, and actively high-stick massive stingrays in the wash without the blank showing a single sign of structural failure. It provides a level of brute force lifting power that usually requires a massive investment in heavy tackle gear, and it does it for under $60. The honest limitation of the FibLink is its sensitivity. It is essentially a highly engineered broomstick, meaning you are not going to feel the delicate bite of a small pompano picking up a sand flea. But if your goal is to heave a 4-ounce pyramid sinker past the second sandbar and drag 30-pound redfish through heavy current, you do not need delicate sensitivity. You just need a winch, and this rod is the ultimate budget winch. Moving down the list, we hit a rod that carries a massive, silent authority among hardcore trout and panfish anglers. The Okuma Telilo is not a secret new technology, nor is it a flash-in-the-pan internet brand trying to disrupt the market. This specific rod has been in continuous, largely unchanged production for well over a decade, quietly dominating the ultralight category on Amazon through sheer, undeniable survival. When a rod survives in the hyper-competitive entry-level market for that many years, with thousands upon thousands of verified reviews backing it up, that is no longer a marketing claim. That is a public verdict. The Telilo features a soft, parabolic fiberglass blend blank that is absolutely masterful at protecting ultra-thin 2-pound test line from snapping when a heavy trout makes a sudden, violent run at the side of the boat. The compromise is that the cork handle is a cheaper composite rather than premium grade A cork, meaning it will pit and weather over a few heavy seasons. But for less than $35, you are getting a specialized tool that will put more crappie in the cooler than rods that cost significantly more. Next is a rod that forces a direct, uncomfortable head-to-head comparison with the titans of the bass fishing industry. The Kadence CR5 is a rod that essentially dared to copy the homework of the legendary G. Loomis E6X line, but decided to sell it at a fraction of the cost. In side-by-side, blindfolded sensitivity tests, anglers repeatedly struggle to tell the difference between the 30-ton carbon blank of the CR5 and blanks that retail for over $150. Kadence utilizes premium Fuji O-ring guides and an incredibly lightweight skeleton reel seat, components that are universally recognized as industry standards for performance and longevity. The caveat with the CR5 is its action rating. Their fast action tends to fish a little softer than an American standard fast, acting more like a moderate fast taper. As long as you know to size up your action when ordering, you're receiving a highly sensitive, tournament-capable jig and worm rod for roughly $50. Item number 5 brings us to a hyper-specific context of use where expensive gear is actually a liability rather than an asset. When you're kayaking in tight, overgrown creeks, fighting low-hanging branches, dropping rods on hard plastic decks, and occasionally flipping the entire vessel, the last thing you want in your hands is a brittle, high-modulus, $200 graphite wand. The Ugly Stick GX2 is the most heavily purchased rod on Amazon for a reason that goes far beyond its incredibly low $40 price tag. It is the hammer of the fishing world, the tool you hand to a complete beginner, the backup rod you toss unceremoniously into the bed of your truck, and the rod you use when the environment is actively trying to destroy your gear. It is unapologetically heavy, it is wildly insensitive compared to pure carbon, and it feels like a wet noodle when trying to set a single-hook swim bait. But it will absolutely never, ever break on a fish, making it the greatest purely utilitarian investment on the entire platform. Our sixth rod is a direct-to-consumer masterpiece that specifically targets the rapidly growing finesse swim bait market. The Berry Pro Bass series offers a carbon wrap construction that provides a surprisingly crisp, responsive tip section, allowing you to accurately pitch weightless plastics under deep boat docks with a flick of the wrist. Unlike most budget rods that just slather heavy epoxy over cheap guides, Berry Pro actually balances their rod blanks, ensuring it doesn't feel tip-heavy when paired with a standard 2000 size spinning reel. The caveat here is purely aesthetic. The graphics are loud, heavily stylized, and frankly look a bit cheap in the sunlight. But fish do not care about the font on your rod blank. And at $45, this tool delivers the mechanical performance required for technical, precision casting. Item number 7 takes us into the world of multi-piece travel rods, a category historically plagued by dead spots in the blank and loose ferrules that launch the top half of the rod into the lake on a hard cast. The Endsport 2-piece casting rod completely subverts this expectation by offering 2 entirely different top sections, one medium and one medium heavy, included in the same incredibly cheap package. You're effectively buying 2 different rod actions for roughly $40. This is the rod you break down and stuff behind the back seat of your sedan, the one that lives in your trunk for those unexpected 30-minute fishing windows after work. The trade-off for this versatility is a slight increase in overall weight due to the heavy reinforced ferrule connection, but the convenience of having a legitimate bass-catching tool hidden in your daily driver completely offsets that minor physical penalty. Finally, we reach the undisputed king of the Amazon rod market, the item that perfectly bridges the gap between legitimate heritage brand engineering and the brutal cost-cutting of the modern internet marketplace. The Daiwa Air DX is a rod that honestly has absolutely no business being sold for under $55. It is built utilizing Daiwa's proprietary Braiding X technology, an advanced high-density carbon weave that actively prevents the blank from twisting under heavy load, ensuring all of your lifting power is directed straight to the fish. When you pick up the Air DX, feel the custom EVA grips and notice the immaculate, perfectly straight guide train. Your brain immediately registers it as a $100 piece of equipment. The only reason this rod is not universally praised as the greatest value in modern fishing is because of its incredibly flashy, bright orange accents, which alienate some traditionalist anglers. But strip away the orange paint, and you're holding a mechanically superior, tournament-ready weapon that renders most mid-tier rods completely obsolete. Why did we spend so many years firmly believing that we absolutely had to drop $200 or $300 to get a rod that wouldn't hold us back on the water? It is because the fishing industry successfully conditioned us to equate price directly with performance, convincing us that the logo stamped on the graphite caught the fish, rather than the angler holding the handle. But the enormous logistical infrastructure that justifies those premium prices is not actually making the rod any more sensitive. It is just making the rod drastically more expensive to put in your hands. When you bypass that retail infrastructure, you are not settling for less performance. You're simply refusing to pay for a marketing campaign. But navigating Amazon for fishing gear is an absolute minefield, and you have to know exactly how to filter out the actual factory garbage from the legitimate, direct-to-consumer gems. The first golden rule of buying rods on Amazon is to instantly ignore any listing that uses heavily photoshopped images of someone holding a massively disproportionate, digitally inserted fish. If the brand cannot be bothered to take a real photograph of their product in a real angler's hand, they have zero faith in its actual performance. Second, you must exclusively seek out rods that openly declare the exact tonnage of their carbon blank, like 24-ton or 30-ton graphite. If a listing simply says high-quality carbon material, they are using cheap, heavy fiberglass composite and trying to intentionally deceive you with vague marketing speak. Finally, when your new Amazon rod arrives at your door, do not just toss it in the garage. Immediately take it out, string it up, tie the line to a doorknob, and put a heavy, aggressive bend into the blank. If there is a factory defect in the graphite, you want it to violently snap in your living room while it is still well within the 30-day return window, not 3 months later when you finally hook the fish of a lifetime. These 8 rods represent a massive shift in how we acquire the tools we use to chase fish. One offers you absolute, indestructible utility for the worst conditions. Another gives you the delicate, high-modulus sensitivity required to feel a lethargic winter bite. And the third gives you an entire quiver of versatility hidden securely in the trunk of your car. But I want to know exactly what is currently sitting on the deck of your boat or in the bed of your truck. Drop down into the comments right now and tell me the exact brand and model of the absolute cheapest rod you have ever used that genuinely shocked you with its performance on the water. Next week, we are taking this exact same, brutal, mathematically cold approach to the reels you're going to mount on these rods, stripping away the shiny chrome plastic to expose the gear trains that actually matter. Until then, remember that the fish do not know what brand is printed on your blank. No sponsors, no brand worship, just the math that puts more fish in the net.